What if the way you've had sex your whole life is actually why you lost that deep connection in your older years? Let me introduce you to Harold. He was 72, gentle, retired, and newly divorced. He met someone new and wanted to get close again. After years alone, but his body didn't respond. He panicked. She backed off, and he never tried again. Not because he didn't care, but because he believed he was broken. I'm Dr. James, a urologist and expert in men's health. For over 30 years, I've helped thousands of men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond rebuild confidence, restore intimacy, and protect their health in ways they thought were long gone. Many believe aging means the end of their sex life. But the truth? It doesn't. What's really holding them back is what no one ever taught them. Today, I'm going to share 5 powerful intimacy secrets older men wish they had learned earlier, and the steep cost of not knowing. Before we dive in, if this honest, life-changing advice hits home, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. And if this resonates, type 1 in the comments so I know you're here. If not, type 0. I genuinely want to grow and serve you better. Asterisk. Let's start with the first truth, because this one quietly crushes more confidence in relationships than anything else. The myth that intimacy after 60 should still be spontaneous. Secret 1. You can't rely on spontaneity anymore. And that's not a weakness. It's wisdom. When you were younger, intimacy could happen anywhere, anytime. You didn't have to think. Desire and ability matched up perfectly. No planning, no prep, just instinct. For most men, that's spur of the moment. Spark made everything feel thrilling. But here's the hard truth no one says out loud. After 60, the rules change. And trying to hold on to the idea that you should just be ready is not only unrealistic, it's dangerous. I've seen it over and over again. Men sitting across from me, eyes on the floor, ashamed not because they're sick or injured, but because of one failed night behind closed doors. They tried to be intimate. Their body didn't cooperate. And instead of giving themselves grace, they blamed themselves. They felt humiliated, weak, broken. Some gave up on sex completely. Others pretended nothing happened. But most, they never asked for help. One man I'll never forget. His name was Gerald. 69, active, healthy, finally dating again after years of loneliness. Things were going great until the night things got physical. He hadn't prepared. Thought it would just happen like it used to. But when his body didn't respond, he panicked. He made an excuse, pulled away, and never called her again. Not because he didn't like her, but because he felt like he'd lost his manhood that night. And that, right there, that's the cost of not understanding the new reality of aging and intimacy. It's not just a disappointing moment. It's a hit to your identity, your self-esteem, your emotional well-being. For many men, it becomes the starting point of isolation. They stop trying. They avoid connection. And what begins as a physical issue quickly becomes emotional distance. Then come the loneliness, the resentment, the creeping belief that their best years are behind them. But listen to me closely. Losing spontaneity does not mean losing intimacy. What worked at 30 was powered by biology. What works at 60, 70, or 80 must be built on preparation, communication, and intention. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's wisdom. And honestly, it can lead to something deeper, something better. Because when you plan for intimacy, you're protecting it. You're telling your body, your partner, and your soul, this matters. You give yourself the time to manage your stress. Improve circulation, avoid the wrong medications, and create the emotional safety that performance thrives in. Even more importantly, you take the pressure off. You stop demanding your body behave like it did at 25, and you start enjoying the moment not for the performance, but for the connection. Now, let me be clear. Ignoring this truth isn't just emotionally painful. It can be physically dangerous. I've seen men suffer strokes, heart attacks, even fatal drops in blood pressure, all because they pushed too hard, too fast, without preparing their bodies first. Intimacy, like any physical exertion, deserves respect. If you ignore that and treat sex after 60 like a college hookup, you're not just risking your pride. You could be risking your life. I've spoken with widows whose husbands passed away. During intimacy, men too proud to admit they needed to slow down. I've treated patients in the EHO, mixed enhancement pills with blood pressure meds, not realizing the danger. And I've seen too many men pay the ultimate price for not knowing. That aging changes the rules, and you must play the game differently. But here's the hopeful part. Once you do understand the new approach, everything starts to shift. Conversations open up. Performance anxiety disappears. Satisfaction returns. And most importantly, you reclaim your identity. Not as the man you used to be, but as the wiser, stronger, more grounded man you've become. So if you felt disconnected, frustrated, or ashamed, hear this. It's not over. It's a new chapter. If you're willing to let go of outdated expectations and embrace a smarter, safer, and more powerful path to intimacy. Now, this leads us to something even more critical, because while most men obsess over what's happening in the bedroom, they're ignoring the warning signs that their body is screaming about their heart. And if you miss that message, it could cost you everything. Asterisk secret 2. Erections are a window into your heart health. Let's be real. If you're over 60 and you've noticed changes in your ability to get or keep an erection, you should be concerned. Not just for your sex life, but for your heart. Too many men think erectile dysfunction is just about what happens in the bedroom, an awkward inconvenience, a joke among friends, something to quietly ignore. But what no one told you, and what most men never realize, is that an erection is not just about sex. It's a cardiovascular event, one of the most sensitive indicators of blood flow in your entire body. And when that flow starts to weaken, it's not just a bedroom issue, it's a warning. I remember a patient, David, 67, married, still working part-time, staying active. He came to me for what he called a minor bedroom issue. Probably just age, right, Doc? He said with a laugh. But I didn't laugh. Something felt off. I ran a few tests, then ordered a cardiac workup. 3 weeks later, David was in surgery for a 90% blockage in his left anterior descending artery. That's the one they call the widowmaker. He called me that night from his hospital bed. He said, "I thought I had a sex problem. Turns out I had a time bomb in my chest." Here's what most men don't know. The arteries in the penis are much smaller than the ones in the heart. That means they clog faster, narrow sooner. So if blood isn't flowing down there, it could mean your bigger arteries, like the ones feeding your heart and brain, are already compromised. In fact, erectile dysfunction is often the very first sign of cardiovascular disease. It's your body's way of whispering, something's wrong. Ignore that signal, and the cost can be deadly. I've seen men shrug it off. Why pills, blame stress, or age? Meanwhile, they're walking around with dangerously high blood pressure, clogged arteries, or undiagnosed diabetes. And by the time they notice something seriously wrong, it's too late. A stroke, a heart attack in their sleep, damage they can't undo. And it doesn't end with physical danger. There's emotional fallout too. When a man loses confidence in his body, it chips away at everything. His self-worth, his intimacy, his desire to connect. He might pull away from his partner. He might stop trying altogether. And little by little, he starts to disappear. But here's the truth. It doesn't have to be that way. You have more control than you think. If you treat your erection as a signal, not a source of shame, you can catch bigger problems early. You can take action. Smart action. Changes that don't just improve your sex life, they could literally save your life. A weak erection might be your body's way of whispering, "I need help." But too many men don't listen until that whisper becomes a scream. That's why I tell every man I meet, if something changes in your performance, don't ignore it. Don't hide it. And for the love of your future, don't be embarrassed. Be smart. Be proactive. Get your heart checked. Run the tests. Have the conversation. Because one uncomfortable doctor visit today could give you 10 more healthy years with your spouse. Your kids, your life. This isn't about shame. It's about survival. And here's the good news. When you treat the root cause, whether it's poor circulation, low testosterone, or stress, things can get better. I've had men in their 70s tell me they feel like they're 45 again. Not because of some miracle, because they listened. They took their bodies seriously before it was too late. But now, I want to shift to something even more personal. Because while the heart affects the body, there's another layer, one we don't talk about enough. It lives in your emotions, your memories, your need for touch. It's the part of intimacy they don't teach in med school, but often it's the most healing. And when it's missing, sex becomes cold, disconnected, and even painful. In the next secret, we'll dive into the emotional power of sex after 6-0 and how the absence of that connection could be quietly damaging your health in ways you never imagined. Don't go anywhere. Secret 3. Sex isn't just physical, it's emotional medicine. This one might hit closer to home than you expect. Because the truth is, intimacy after 60 isn't just about your body. It's about your heart, your mind, your soul. I want you to think back to a time when you felt truly connected to someone, not just in bed, but emotionally. When their touch made you feel seen, safe, alive. For many men, those moments are rare, and they become even rarer as we age. But when that emotional connection fades, the cost goes far beyond pleasure. It starts to eat away at your health silently. I've sat across from powerful, capable men in their 70s, men who built families, businesses, entire lives. And yet, their voices shook when they told me, "I haven't felt close to anyone in years." Not even emotionally. These men weren't starving for sex. They were starving for closeness, for warmth, for someone to reach out, hold their hand, and mean it. That deep need, when ignored, turns into something darker. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, even high blood pressure that no medication can touch. Man, I'll never forget Martin, 74. He didn't come in because he couldn't perform. He came in because he felt. Numbed out. His wife had passed 5 years earlier. Since then, he'd shut down. He convinced himself intimacy didn't belong in his life anymore. What's the point at this age? He asked, but the truth was in his eyes. He missed it. The laughter, the shared space, the simple act of being held. What Martin didn't realize, what most men are never told, is that intimacy is emotional medicine. It's not just about pleasure. It's about chemistry. Touch, whether with a partner or even self-touch, releases oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. These aren't just feel-good chemicals. They lower your stress, improve your sleep, boost your immune system, protect your heart, and literally keep your brain sharp. So when you lose intimacy, you're not just losing comfort. You're losing one of your body's strongest health protectors. And yet, so many men turn away. They convince themselves that connection is for the young, that asking for touch is weak, that expressing need is embarrassing, so they shut down. They stay silent, even when closeness is offered. But here's the price of that silence: increased depression, higher cortisol, weakened immune defenses, elevated blood pressure, and over time a faster decline in brain function. I've seen men age 10 years in half the time. Not from illness, but from isolation. They weren't dying, but they weren't living either. And this isn't just about having a partner. Some men are in marriages, yet feel completely alone. Others live solo, but nurture deep emotional connections through friends, conversation, even self-acceptance. Because emotional intimacy is just as critical as physical health. Without it, you're running on empty. Now I want to say something. That might be hard to hear if you've lost interest in touch, if you've told yourself affection doesn't matter anymore, if you've been feeling disconnected for a while. You may already be slipping into emotional starvation, and it's costing you far more than you realize, but it's not too late. Reaching for connection, yes, even now, is one of the most powerful health moves you can make. Whether it's a heartfelt talk with your partner, allowing yourself to feel something during a simple moment of touch, or just admitting that you want closeness again. It all begins with one thing: courage. The courage to stop just surviving and start living again. If you're wondering, can intimacy still bring joy, peace, and real connection at my age? Let me tell you, yes, it absolutely can. In fact, the most meaningful sex often happens after youth fades. Because the masks fall away, the pressure fades, and what's left is something raw, real, and deeply human. But there's one invisible enemy still standing in the way. Something that rewires your brain, distorts your expectations, and kills your ability to truly feel. It's not aging. It's not illness. It's something you carry in your pocket. Something you watch when no one's looking. And in the next secret, I'll show you how the very thing many men turn to for comfort could be silently destroying their confidence, their connection, and their chance at real intimacy. Asterisk, you're going to want to hear this. Secret 4. Porn and unrealistic expectations are silently destroying senior confidence. It's something men rarely speak about, yet most quietly experience. It's where many turn when they're lonely, bored, or just trying to feel something again. It's quick, private, and always available. Yes, I'm talking about pornography. And while it might seem harmless, especially later in life, it's one of the most devastating silent killers of confidence and intimacy I've ever seen. In my 30 years of working with men, a heartbreaking pattern keeps appearing. As age brings slower arousal, longer recovery, and occasional issues with performance, many men slowly retreat into fantasy. They stop engaging with their partners. They stop asking for touch. They stop trying altogether. Instead, they sit alone with a screen, convincing themselves this is normal, even necessary. But here's the truth. What they're watching is reprogramming their brain. It changes how they think, how they feel, and what they expect from themselves and their partners. I remember a man named Walter. He was 71, retired, Navy, proud, strong, but something had shifted. He hadn't touched his wife in nearly 4 years. He told me they had just grown apart. But slowly, the truth came out. Walter had started watching adult content daily. What began as the occasional escape became a full-on replacement for real connection. He started comparing what he saw on screen to what he experienced at home. His wife's body, her pace, her sounds no longer excited him. He grew bored, then distant, then silent, and eventually, she stopped reaching for him at all. That's the quiet cost of porn in older age. It's not just what you see, what you stop feeling. Your brain adjusts to constant novelty. Flawless bodies, perfect angles, zero emotion, and real life, real skin, real connection. It just doesn't compete. That imperfect human closeness you once loved now feels dull, even annoying. Your body follows. Dopamine patterns shift. Touch alone no longer arouses. Some men can't climax without a screen. Others report delayed orgasm, weak erections, or zero desire. But the deepest wound is emotional, the quiet loss of confidence, connection, and self-worth. Because no matter how often you watch, you're still left with that empty silence afterward. That haunting thought, why don't I feel anything? Did I change? Is this just aging? But no, it's not just age. It's your brain, wired to chase what's fake, forgetting how to enjoy what's real. And that is terrifying. I've seen marriages fall apart, not from affairs or illness, but from years of digital distance. Men growing numb to their own bodies, losing faith in themselves without stimulation, shame, guilt, secrecy, thinking they're alone, but hear me, you're not. And there is a way back. It begins by realizing what you consume affects how you connect. Porn teaches your mind to expect constant stimulation, endless novelty, and zero emotional effort. But real intimacy? It's none of those. It's slower. It's deeper. It's built on presence, conversation, and trust. It's not instant. But it is real and far more fulfilling. Letting go of porn, especially if it's become a habit, isn't easy. It takes honesty, support, and sometimes professional help. But what you gain on the other side is priceless. A renewed sense of self, a deeper bond with your partner, natural desire that doesn't leave you empty, and above all, a restored confidence that isn't tied to fantasy, but to presence. So if you've been living in that quiet emotional distance, ask yourself, can I still feel something real? The answer, absolutely yes. But it requires a choice, one you must make, again and again. And while this emotional rewiring can eat away at your confidence over time, there's still one more secret. One final danger that can destroy everything instantly. It's not about what you watch. It's about what you do. A dangerous timing mistake many older men make when trying to prove they've still got it. A single misstep that has cost men their marriages, their dignity, and in the worst cases, their lives. That's exactly what I'll reveal in the final secret. Don't miss it. Secret 5. The most dangerous moment to have sex is when you feel validated. It's a subtle trap many older men fall into. You feel strong, confident, maybe even invincible. Maybe you just got a good report from your doctor. Maybe an old friend says, you've still got it. Maybe a new romantic spark lights something inside you that hasn't burned in years. And in that moment, something risky happens. You feel the urge to prove it, to yourself, to your partner, to time itself. Want to show the world you've still got it. You want to perform like you did at 30. No warm-up, no boundaries, just full throttle. And that's when it all goes wrong. I've seen it more times than I can count. Men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, pushing too far, too fast, all in the name of pride. They drink too much wine, skip their heart meds, pop some gas station enhancement pill, and walk into the bedroom like it's a stage. But inside, their heart's working overtime, blood pressure spiking, breathing is shallow, and the body, the one that needed prep and care, is being forced into a moment it's not ready. For I'll never forget Leonard. He was 74, funny, full of charm, and dating a younger woman. He once joked, "Doc, I gotta keep up." I warned him, told him sex is exercise, not just pleasure, that his heart wasn't what it used to be. He nodded, smiled, said, "Don't worry, I know my limits." 2 weeks later, he collapsed in a hotel room, cardiac arrest. His date called for help, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. His heart couldn't handle the pressure of that night. Not because he wasn't man enough, but because he forgot something critical. Aging demands respect, not resistance. Here's the brutal truth. When men try to prove they're still young, without care or caution, the price can be deadly. Sex in later years isn't just about desire. It's a whole body event. Heart rate climbs, vessels expand, breath deepens. It's like climbing a hill. But if your heart isn't ready, that hill becomes a cliff. I've spoken to widows who say, well, at least he died doing what he loved. But beneath that phrase is a quiet pain. Because those deaths, they weren't peaceful. They were preventable. The mistake isn't wanting intimacy. It's ignoring what your body needs. It's letting ego shout louder than experience. It's turning your partner into an audience instead of a companion. When sex becomes a performance, it stops being intimacy and starts becoming a risk, and that fear men carry, that they're no longer desirable, no longer strong. It drives them to make choices that cost more than pride. Sometimes it costs everything, but here's the beautiful truth. You don't need to prove anything. You've already lived. You've already endured. You've already loved. Your worth isn't measured by how hard or how long, but by how present, honest, and connected you are. Slowing down isn't giving up. It's survival. Pacing yourself isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The most powerful thing an older man can do isn't to fight aging. It's to face it with clarity, strength, and care. So if you ever feel that urge to prove yourself, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this about connection or control? Is this about love or fear? Because in that moment, your choice matters. You can chase performance, and risk everything. Or you can choose presence and build something real. And if that idea makes you nervous, good, it should. Because this isn't just about sex. It's about staying alive long enough to enjoy what comes next. To avoid becoming just another unspoken statistic, now that you've learned all 5 secrets, what they are, what they cost, and how they quietly rob older men of joy, there, single quotes one last piece I need to share. Something that ties all of this together. Because knowing isn't enough. Living differently, that's the change. And in the final message, I'll reveal the one insight that could turn everything around. Don't miss it. Asterisk by now. You've learned 5 hard truths that countless older men wish they'd discovered years earlier. These aren't just random tips, they're pivotal moments. Subtle yet powerful shifts in awareness that often draw the line between men who age with connection, vitality, and purpose, and those who slowly fade from their partners, their health, and most HEARTBREAKI-NGLY If there's one lesson I've seen repeat over and over in my practice, it's this: the hardest part of aging isn't physical decline, it's the emotional weight, the quiet ache of feeling invisible, uncertain, or too ashamed to speak up. Men sit across from me every week thinking their struggles are rare or embarrassing, as if they're broken or weak, but they're not. And neither are you. Your body hasn't betrayed you. It's simply changed. And like any change in life, it needs compassion and knowledge, not guilt. So let's take a deep breath and revisit what we've uncovered. We started with spontaneity, the myth that sex should just happen like it did at 25. But after 60, that thinking only leads to disappointment and sometimes danger. Planning doesn't make intimacy less romantic. It makes it sustainable. It becomes deeper, safer, and more intentional. Then came the second truth, the one most men don't realize until it's too late. Your erection is more than a bedroom issue. It's a warning sign. If blood isn't reaching where it used to, there's a good chance it's not reaching your heart or brain either. That one clue could save your life if you pay attention. Third secret brought us to the emotional core. Intimacy isn't just about function. It's connection. It grounds us, heals us. But when men shut that door, whether from grief, guilt, or stubborn pride, they begin to shrink inside. Not from aging, but from isolation. From soul-deep loneliness, then we uncovered a quiet danger: pornography. It starts as a harmless outlet, but ends up distorting how we love, how we relate, and how we see ourselves. It numbs real intimacy, rewires your expectations, and over time, robs you of the depth and joy connection is meant to bring. And finally, the fifth secret. The most dangerous moment isn't when a man feels weak. It's when he pushes too hard trying to prove he's still young. That one moment of pride, of proving something, has taken men's relationships, health, and even their lives. But it doesn't have to end that way, not if you choose presence over pride. Now maybe you saw yourself in one of these stories. Maybe you've been struggling in silence, too ashamed to admit what's happening. Maybe you've told yourself, this is just part of getting old, and there's nothing you can do about it. But here's the truth. There is. And now that you know these secrets, you're no longer powerless. You're informed. And with that comes choice. A chance to rebuild, reconnect, and reimagine what this next chapter could be. Not a slow fade, but a strong, conscious transformation. You don't have to shrink into silence. You don't have to vanish in the background of your own life. You're still here. And your heart, your presence, your capacity for love and connection, they still matter. Maybe now more than ever. So if anything you heard today sparked something inside, made you reflect, made you uncomfortable, or even made you feel a flicker of hope, please don't walk away the same. Talk to your partner. Talk to your doctor. Schedule that checkup. Open that conversation. And most importantly, stop believing the lie that this part of your life is over. It's not. There's still more waiting for you. More connection. More closeness. More healing. More joy. But it all begins with one choice: the decision to stop merely surviving and start living again. And if you're still here, still listening, still willing to learn, I want to thank you. Because the men who transform their lives are the ones who first find the courage to listen. You've just taken that first step. Now, take the next one. If something in this message touched you, if even one line made you feel seen, let me know. Type 1 in the comments. Show me you're still here, still open, still ready to grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. I make these conversations for men like you because you deserve more than silence. You deserve the truth. And you deserve the tools to thrive with strength, clarity, and heart.